By the time Marcus realized he had been giving other people control over his emotions, he had already lost something far more valuable than money. He had lost the ability to enjoy his own life without waiting for someone else to decide how he should feel. And if you've ever checked your phone, reread a message, replayed an argument, or pretended you didn't care while secretly caring more than you want to admit, hit the like button. Consider it a tiny contribution to the Emotional Rehabilitation Fund. Because this isn't really about feeling nothing. It's about becoming so internally grounded that the outside world can no longer pull your emotions around like a child dragging a toy on a string. Think about how much of your mood is controlled by things that aren't even yours. Someone compliments you, you feel good. Someone criticizes you, you feel terrible. Someone replies immediately, you feel important. Someone takes 6 hours to respond. Suddenly you're investigating their entire bloodline. Someone invites you somewhere. You feel valued. Someone leaves you out. You start questioning your existence. Someone loves you. You're peaceful. Someone becomes distant. You're restless. And the strangest part is that most people don't even notice what's happening. They think they're simply emotional. They're not. They're outsourced. Their emotional state has been outsourced to other people. And the moment you understand that, you begin to understand why detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Because detachment isn't saying, I don't care about anything. That's not strength. That's often just emotional exhaustion wearing sunglasses. Real detachment sounds more like, I care about this, but I don't need it to determine my worth. I love this person, but I don't need to possess them. I want this opportunity, but rejection won't destroy me. I appreciate your approval, but I don't depend on it. I can feel anger without becoming angry. I can experience disappointment without becoming disappointment. That's a completely different philosophy. And it begins with a painful realization. You don't suffer only because of what happens. You suffer because of what you tell yourself what happened means. Someone doesn't answer your message. The event is simple. They didn't answer. But your mind begins producing a documentary. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they met someone else. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe they don't respect me. Maybe I'm not important. 20 minutes later, you've created an entire fictional universe based on one unanswered message. And the funniest part, you're the writer, producer, director, villain, victim, and audience. Nobody else is even watching. This is where Stoic philosophy becomes practical. The Stoics understood that your first reaction isn't always under your control. But what happens after that first reaction? That's where your power begins. You feel the emotion. Then you examine it. You ask, is this actually happening, or am I creating a story about what might be happening? That one question can save you from hours of unnecessary suffering. Because your mind loves certainty. It hates unanswered questions. That's why uncertainty can make you more anxious than bad news. At least bad news has an ending. Uncertainty leaves the door open. And your imagination happily walks through that door carrying a suitcase full of disasters. You can lose an hour imagining why someone didn't reply. You can lose a day replaying an argument. You can lose a week wondering whether someone still cares. You can lose months waiting for an apology that may never come. And eventually you realize something brutal. You weren't being hurt by the situation anymore. You were repeatedly hurting yourself by revisiting it. That is attachment. Attachment isn't simply loving something. Attachment is believing you must control the outcome in order to be okay. And that's where emotional freedom begins. Not when you stop wanting. When you stop needing. There's a difference. You can want someone. You can want money. You can want success. You can want respect. You can want recognition. You can want a particular future. There is nothing wrong with desire. The danger begins when desire becomes dependence. I want this, is healthy. I must have this or I cannot be happy, is a prison. Because now your peace has conditions. And whoever controls those conditions can control you. Think about that. If someone's attention determines your confidence, they have power over you. If someone's rejection determines your self-worth, they have power over you. If someone's anger determines whether you can sleep, they have power over you. If someone else's success makes you hate yourself, they have power over you. And they may not even know they have it. That's the disturbing part. You can hand somebody power without them ever asking for it. You can give them the keys and then spend years complaining that they drive your life. Take relationships. A person you're attracted to doesn't reply. The detached person thinks. They haven't replied. The emotionally dependent person thinks. What does this say about me? That's the difference. One observes an event. The other turns an event into an identity crisis. And if you've ever stared at a typing indicator like your future depended on it, you already understand. The solution isn't to become cold. The solution is to stop turning every external event into a verdict about yourself. You don't need to win every interaction. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't need everyone to apologize. You don't need everyone to admit you were right. You don't even need everyone to know that you were right. Sometimes the strongest sentence you can say is nothing. Not because you're afraid to speak. Because you've decided the conversation no longer deserves your energy. There's a difference between silence because you're powerless, and silence because you've developed priorities. And that's something people often learn too late. You can win an argument and lose the relationship. You can prove your point and lose your peace. You can make someone admit they were wrong and still go home angry. Congratulations. You won the debate and lost the evening. What exactly did you gain? This is why emotional detachment changes the way you handle conflict. When you're desperate to be understood, you'll explain yourself endlessly. You'll send paragraphs, then another paragraph explaining the first paragraph, then a final paragraph clarifying that you didn't mean the second paragraph in the way they interpreted the first paragraph. At some point you're no longer having a conversation. You're submitting a dissertation, and the other person is probably eating noodles. You don't need to convince everyone. Sometimes time will explain what you couldn't. Sometimes your actions will prove what your words couldn't. Sometimes people will misunderstand you permanently. And that has to be acceptable. Because one of the greatest forms of emotional freedom is accepting that you cannot control another person's interpretation of you. You can control your character, not their opinion of your character. You can control your actions, not their reaction to your actions. You can control your effort, not whether someone rewards it. You can control your words, not whether someone understands them. That distinction sounds simple. Living it is difficult, because your ego wants control over everything. Your ego wants the perfect response, the perfect reputation, the perfect relationship, the perfect outcome. And when reality refuses to cooperate, your ego starts negotiating with the universe. Maybe if I explain one more time. Maybe if I send one more message. Maybe if I show them. Maybe if I prove myself. But sometimes there is nothing left to prove. And the moment you accept that, you become lighter. This is one of the paradoxes of detachment. The less you need to prove, the more confident you become. The less you need approval, the more authentic you become. The less you need someone to stay, the more freely you can love them. The less terrified you are of losing, the better you can compete. The less you need to be right, the more willing you become to learn. And the less control you demand from the world, the more control you gain over yourself. That's the real meaning behind the title. Feel nothing and gain everything doesn't mean become an emotionless machine. It means stop allowing temporary emotions to make permanent decisions. Because emotions are excellent messengers. They are terrible managers. Anger might tell you something matters. It shouldn't necessarily decide what you say. Fear might tell you something feels dangerous. It shouldn't automatically decide what you do. Jealousy might reveal insecurity. It shouldn't dictate how you treat someone. Sadness might tell you that you've lost something meaningful. It doesn't mean you've lost yourself. Desire might show you what you want. It doesn't mean you need it immediately. Feel the emotion, listen to the message, then choose the response. That is mastery. And here's where most people fail. They think emotional control means suppressing emotion. So they get hurt and say, I don't care. They get rejected and say, I never wanted them anyway. They fail and say, it doesn't matter. They get angry and pretend they're calm. They feel lonely and pretend they're above relationships. That's not detachment. That's acting. You're not free if you're spending all your energy pretending you don't feel something. The strongest person in the room isn't necessarily the one who feels the least. Sometimes it's the person who feels everything and still behaves according to their principles. Imagine someone insults you publicly. Your first instinct is anger. That's normal. Your body reacts. Your ego rises. You want to answer. You want everyone to know that you aren't weak. But then you pause. You ask, what outcome do I actually want? Not, what response will make me feel powerful for the next 30 seconds? What do I actually want? If the insult is meaningless, walking away might be strength. If there's useful criticism hidden inside it, learning might be strength. If a boundary has been crossed, calmly addressing it might be strength. Exploding simply because your ego demanded entertainment. That's not strength. That's being emotionally available to anyone with a mouth. And some people are professional button pushers. They don't need a degree. They just notice what makes you react. Once they discover it, they press it. Again, and again, and again. Why? Because your reaction rewards them. The day you stop giving them the reaction they came for, their influence begins to disappear. That's detachment. Not pretending you didn't hear. Not pretending it didn't hurt. Simply refusing to let another person's behavior dictate your behavior. And that applies far beyond insults. It applies to rejection. Rejection is one of the greatest tests of emotional control because rejection attacks the ego directly. You wanted something, you didn't get it, and your mind immediately tries to explain why. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm unattractive. Maybe I'm behind. Maybe I'll never find anyone. But rejection doesn't necessarily mean you're inadequate. It means one particular outcome didn't happen. That's all. Don't turn a closed door into a biography. Sometimes a door closes because you weren't ready. Sometimes because the opportunity wasn't right. Sometimes because someone else was chosen. Sometimes because the relationship wasn't compatible. And sometimes because life simply doesn't care about your schedule. That's painful, but it isn't personal. The mature response isn't, I don't care. It's, it hurts, but I can handle it. That's a much stronger sentence. Because you're not denying reality. You're demonstrating capacity. You can handle disappointment. You can handle uncertainty. You can handle being misunderstood. You can handle losing. You can handle someone walking away. You can handle not being chosen. And once you truly believe you can handle those things, desperation begins to disappear. This is where confidence comes from. Not from believing you'll always win. From knowing you'll survive when you don't. That's why the emotionally detached person can take bigger risks. They aren't fearless. They simply aren't terrified of the consequences. If you know rejection won't destroy you, you can ask. If you know failure won't destroy you, you can try. If you know criticism won't destroy you, you can create. If you know someone leaving won't destroy you, you can love without clinging. Detachment expands your range. It makes life bigger. Because fear makes your world smaller. You stop applying, stop approaching, stop creating, stop speaking, stop trying. Not because you don't want those things. Because you're terrified of what it would mean if you failed. And suddenly you're not protecting yourself from pain. You're protecting yourself from life. That's too expensive. You weren't given a life so you could spend it avoiding every uncomfortable feeling. You were given a mind capable of experiencing discomfort and continuing anyway. That is resilience. And here's another uncomfortable truth. Sometimes you don't need closure. You need acceptance. People spend years waiting for the perfect explanation. Why did they leave? Why did they lie? Why did they change? Why did they choose someone else? Why didn't they appreciate me? Why didn't they apologize? Maybe one day you'll get the answers. Maybe you won't. But your life cannot remain paused until somebody else provides the missing chapter. Closure is often something you create. You decide, it happened, it hurt, I learned, and I'm moving forward. No courtroom, no final speech, no dramatic background music, just acceptance. And acceptance is not approval. You don't have to approve of what happened. You simply stop arguing with the fact that it happened. That is incredibly powerful. Because resistance consumes energy. Acceptance releases it. Imagine carrying a heavy bag everywhere you go. Every argument you've replayed, every rejection you've remembered, every insult, every betrayal, every missed opportunity, every person you wanted to impress, every person you wanted to prove wrong. You're carrying all of it. Then one day you ask, why am I still carrying this? Because you haven't decided to put it down. Detachment is putting the bag down. Not because the past didn't matter. Because your future matters too. And this is where the gain everything part becomes deeper. When you detach from unnecessary emotional noise, you don't become empty. You create space. Space for concentration. Space for creativity. Space for discipline. Space for relationships that actually matter. Space for your goals. Space for peace. Imagine how much energy you would recover if you stopped obsessing over what everyone else thought about you. How much time would return if you stopped replaying old arguments? How much focus you'd gain if you stopped checking who liked your post? How much confidence you'd build if you stopped comparing your life to people online? You don't realize how expensive emotional attachment is until you stop paying for it. And social media makes this worse. You see someone your age traveling, someone buying a car, someone getting married, someone starting a business, someone showing a six-pack, someone showing a bank balance. And suddenly you're sitting there wondering whether you failed at life. You don't even know their full story. You're comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to their highlight reel. That's not ambition. That's emotional slavery disguised as comparison. Detach. Their timeline isn't yours. Their success doesn't subtract from yours. Their progress doesn't prove your failure. You can admire someone without worshiping their life. You can learn from someone without hating yourself. You can want more without despising what you currently have. That's emotional maturity. And it becomes especially important with money. Wanting money isn't the problem. Making money your identity is. If your self-worth rises every time your balance rises and collapses every time your balance falls, you're giving numbers control over your identity. Build wealth. Absolutely. Work hard. Absolutely. Improve your situation. Absolutely. But don't become psychologically dependent on the scoreboard. Because every scoreboard eventually changes. You might win today, lose tomorrow, win again, lose again. If your identity depends on the result, you'll be emotionally exhausted forever. Build something deeper: character, skill, discipline, knowledge, integrity. Those remain yours even when circumstances change. The Stoics weren't telling people to stop pursuing excellence. They were teaching them not to confuse outcomes with identity. You control the effort. You don't fully control the result. You control preparation. You don't control every circumstance. You control your response. You don't control whether people admire you. You control whether you behave admirably. That is a much more stable foundation. And once you understand this, you begin noticing how often people try to win control through emotional reactions. Someone gives you the silent treatment. You panic. Someone becomes jealous. You defend yourself for hours. Someone withdraws affection. You chase. Someone threatens to leave. You beg. Someone insults you. You explode. Someone doubts you. You become obsessed with proving them wrong. Notice the pattern. They don't necessarily control you. Your reaction gives them control. So take the reaction back. Don't become cruel. Don't become arrogant. Don't play games. Simply become harder to manipulate. And there's a huge difference between being detached and being disrespectful. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring people. It means respecting yourself enough not to abandon your principles just because you're afraid someone might leave. It means you can apologize without begging. You can explain without over-explaining. You can love without clinging. You can walk away without hatred. You can forgive without reopening the door. You can say no without writing a 5-page legal defense. Sometimes, no is enough. Sometimes, I understand is enough. Sometimes, I disagree is enough. Sometimes silence is enough. Your peace doesn't need a press conference. And if this is hitting a little too close to home, comment one word: detached. Not because typing one word will magically turn you into Marcus Aurelius tomorrow morning, but because making the idea concrete gives you something to remember the next time your emotions start trying to run the meeting. Now let's talk about something even more dangerous: the need to be right. Because people will tolerate incredible amounts of stress just to avoid admitting they were wrong. Someone says something you disagree with. You know you're right. They know they're right. Both of you now have enough confidence to start World War III over a conversation about something neither of you will remember next Tuesday. And why? Because the ego isn't interested in truth. It wants victory. But truth doesn't need your ego to defend it. If you're wrong, learn. If you're right, you don't need to perform. That is why the strongest people often speak less. They aren't confused. They simply understand that not every battle deserves their energy. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to answer every accusation. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. You don't have to prove every point. You don't have to respond to every provocation. You have a limited amount of attention. Spend it like money. Would you throw your money at every stranger who demanded it? Probably not. So stop throwing your attention at every person who demands a reaction. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you own. And most people spend it recklessly. They give it to strangers online. They give it to gossip. They give it to arguments. They give it to people they don't even like. Then they wonder why they don't have enough left for themselves. Detachment is partly the art of deciding, "This doesn't deserve me." That sentence can change your life. Not because you're better than everyone. Because you're finally selective. Selective with your attention. Selective with your energy. Selective with your relationships. Selective with your battles. Selective with your words. And eventually, you become selective with your emotions. Not in the sense that you choose which emotions appear. You choose which emotions receive action. That's the distinction. Anger can appear. You don't have to send the message. Jealousy can appear. You don't have to accuse anyone. Fear can appear. You don't have to quit. Sadness can appear. You don't have to isolate yourself forever. Desire can appear. You don't have to act immediately. The feeling arrives. You acknowledge it. Then you choose. That tiny pause between emotion and action is where your freedom lives. Train that pause. Make it bigger. At first, it might be 5 seconds. Then 30. Then 5 minutes. Eventually you can experience something intense and still think clearly. That's emotional strength. And don't underestimate how attractive that quality is. Not because you should practice detachment to make someone chase you. That's another form of attachment. Let me pretend not to care so they will care. No, that's not detachment. That's manipulation wearing a stoic costume. Real detachment doesn't have an audience. You don't need someone to notice that you're calm. You don't need someone to regret losing you. You don't need to post quotes about how unbothered you are. If you're truly unbothered, you probably aren't writing a 600-word announcement about it. You just live, you work, you improve, you move forward, and that's why real detachment is quiet. It doesn't perform, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't seek revenge, it doesn't announce its departure. It simply changes direction, and eventually people notice, not because you're trying to make them notice. Because your behavior changed. You're no longer available for unnecessary drama. You're no longer chasing inconsistent attention. You're no longer explaining your worth. You're no longer negotiating against yourself. You're no longer sacrificing your peace to prove a point. And that's when you start gaining something far more valuable than approval. You gain self-respect. Self-respect isn't thinking you're better than everyone. It's refusing to repeatedly betray yourself for acceptance. That's powerful, because sometimes the person you most need to stop abandoning is yourself. How many times have you ignored your own boundaries because you were afraid someone would leave? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you tolerated disrespect because you wanted to keep someone? How many times have you stayed somewhere your mind had already left because your emotions were afraid of the consequences? Detachment gives you the courage to accept. I would rather lose this than lose myself. That's not arrogance. That's self-preservation. And here's the paradox. When you're genuinely willing to lose something, you often become better at handling it. You negotiate better. You communicate better. You love better. You work better. You compete better. Because desperation distorts judgment. If you absolutely must win, you'll make terrible decisions to avoid losing. But if you know you can walk away, you can think. You can evaluate. You can choose. You can say, this is worth pursuing, or, this is no longer worth my energy. That's freedom. And freedom doesn't mean getting everything you want. It means remaining yourself regardless of what you get. That's the part nobody puts on the motivational poster. You might still be rejected. You might still get hurt. You might still lose money. You might still be misunderstood. You might still experience heartbreak. Detachment doesn't make life painless. It makes pain less controlling. And that's enough. You don't need a life without storms. You need a mind that doesn't collapse every time the weather changes. So the next time something happens that triggers you, don't immediately ask, how do I stop feeling this? Ask, What is this feeling trying to tell me? Then ask, what part of this situation is actually under my control? Then, what response would make me respect myself tomorrow? That third question is incredibly powerful. Not, what response will make them respect me? Not, what response will make them regret it? Not, what response will make me look strong? What response will make me respect myself tomorrow? Sometimes the answer will be to speak. Sometimes it will be to leave. Sometimes it will be to apologize. Sometimes it will be to set a boundary. Sometimes it will be to work harder. Sometimes it will be to let go. But you'll know the difference because you're no longer reacting simply to discharge emotion. You're responding to build your life. That is the transition from reaction to intention. And once you live that way long enough, people may start saying, "You're different." They'll be right. You'll still laugh. You'll still love. You'll still get angry. You'll still have bad days. You'll still care. But your emotions won't own the house anymore. They can visit. They can speak. They can complain. They can make noise. But you make the final decision. And that is what the Stoics were really pointing toward. Not emotional emptiness, inner sovereignty, the ability to remain anchored while circumstances change. Because life will test you. Someone will disappoint you. Someone will leave. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will get ahead of you. Someone will criticize you. Someone will say no. Something you wanted will fail. Something you feared will happen. And when it does, you'll have two choices. You can spend your energy demanding that reality become different. Or you can ask, given that this is reality, what is the strongest thing I can do now? That question moves you forward. The first one keeps you trapped. And perhaps that's the greatest advantage of detachment. It gives you your future back. You stop spending tomorrow's energy fighting yesterday's events. You stop sacrificing today's peace for tomorrow's approval. You stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to move forward. You move, not because you stopped caring. Because you finally started caring about the right things. Your character, your health, your work, your purpose, your relationships, your time, your peace, your ability to become better. That's what you gain. Not everything the world can give you. Everything that actually belongs to you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send them this video on WhatsApp. Don't write a 17-paragraph explanation about why they need to detach. Just send it. Let them find out. Because sometimes explaining the lesson defeats the lesson. Now think about the person, situation, or outcome you're currently struggling to let go of. Ask yourself honestly, what would happen if I stopped trying to control this? Maybe you'd finally sleep. Maybe you'd finally focus. Maybe you'd finally stop checking. Maybe you'd finally start building. Maybe you'd finally realize that what you're afraid to lose has already been costing you more than you noticed. You don't have to stop caring today. You don't have to wake up tomorrow as some emotionless monk living on a mountain and communicating exclusively through mysterious eye contact. Start smaller. Pause before reacting. Wait before sending the message. Take criticism without immediately defending yourself. Let someone misunderstand you without writing an essay. Allow rejection to hurt without turning it into self-hatred. Enjoy praise without becoming addicted to it. Want something without making your happiness dependent on it. And when you fail, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What can this teach me?" That shift changes everything. Because when you stop demanding that life protect your ego, life becomes a teacher. Failure teaches. Rejection teaches. Loss teaches. Criticism teaches. Silence teaches. Even embarrassment teaches. You don't have to enjoy every lesson. You just have to stop wasting it. And maybe that's the real secret. You don't gain everything by feeling nothing. You gain more by needing less. Need less approval. Need less validation. Need less certainty. Need less control. Need less praise. Need less revenge. Need less explanation. Need less attention. Need less permission. And suddenly you have more. More peace. More focus. More courage. More time. More freedom. More self-respect. More room to build. That's the paradox. The tighter you grip everything, the more exhausted you become. Open your hand, and you can finally hold what matters. So don't become someone who feels nothing. Become someone who cannot be easily controlled by what they feel. Feel the anger, but don't become the anger. Feel the fear, but don't surrender to it. Feel the love, but don't turn it into possession. Feel the sadness, but don't build a home inside it. Feel the desire, but don't become its servant. Feel the rejection, but don't let it define you. Feel everything. Choose deliberately. That is strength. And one day, someone will try to provoke the old version of you. They'll say something that would once have ruined your entire day. You'll feel the familiar heat rise inside you. You'll recognize it, you'll breathe, and you'll realize, I don't have to do anything with this. That moment may look insignificant from the outside, but inside, you have just taken your power back. No announcement, no revenge, no dramatic speech, just control. And that's when you understand something that took you years to learn. Peace isn't something other people give you. It's something you stop giving away. So detach, not from life, from the illusion that everything must go your way. Detach from the need to be understood. Detach from the need to be chosen. Detach from the need to win every argument. Detach from the need to control every outcome. Detach from the need to prove yourself. Detach from the belief that losing something means losing yourself. Then watch your mind become quieter. Watch your decisions become clearer. Watch your standards rise. Watch your attention return. Watch your confidence become less dependent on applause. Watch people lose the ability to manipulate you with attention and withdrawal. Watch yourself stop chasing what doesn't choose you. And then, start winning. Not winning against them. Winning against the version of you that used to surrender your peace for temporary approval. Winning against the impulse to react. Winning against desperation. Winning against fear. Winning against the need to prove. Winning against the belief that every emotion deserves immediate action. That is the victory that matters. And if you're still here, comment, I choose. Because that's what this entire philosophy comes down to. You may not choose what happens, but you can choose what happens next. You may not choose who stays, but you can choose how you carry yourself when they leave. You may not choose whether someone respects you, but you can choose whether you respect yourself. You may not choose whether you win today, but you can choose whether you become better tomorrow. You may not control the storm, but you can control whether you hand it the steering wheel. So feel deeply, feel honestly, feel completely. Just don't surrender your judgment to every emotion that knocks on the door. Because the goal was never to become numb. The goal was to become free. Free enough to love without begging. Free enough to lose without breaking. Free enough to fail without collapsing. Free enough to succeed without becoming arrogant. Free enough to walk away without revenge. Free enough to stay without desperation. Free enough to hear no without questioning your worth. Free enough to hear yes without believing you're invincible. And eventually, you reach a place where you don't need the world to behave perfectly before you can be at peace. That's when you become dangerous in the best possible way. Not because you're cruel, because you're no longer easily controlled. Your attention belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your standards belong to you. Your response belongs to you. Your life belongs to you. And once you stop handing those things away, you realize you never needed to feel nothing. You only needed to stop letting everything control you. Detach, watch, start winning, and this time, win yourself back.